Here is an expression, n plus 42. And here are some ways it could be read. A number plus 42. 42 added to a number. The sum of a number and 42. A number increased by 42. And 42 greater than a number. You may have noticed that the letter n, the variable, was read a number. And there are probably some other ways to read this expression as well. Here's another expression, n take away 42. It could be read a number minus 42. Or how about 42 less than a number? This one is tricky. It's tricky because in the original expression, the 42 is written last, and when it's translated into words, the 42 is written first. But it's important that it's read 42 less than a number because subtraction is not commutative. And n take away 42 does not mean the same thing as 42 take away n. Another way to read this would be the difference of a number and 42. Or a number decreased by 42. Or 42 subtracted from a number. And here's one more, a number less 42. The last one on the list, while it's the shortest, is probably the least used. Here's yet another expression, 42n. We already know that when a variable is next to a number, the number is called the coefficient, and it means multiplication. So here are some ways it could be read. 42 times a number. The product of 42 and a number. 42 multiplied by a number. And here's one more expression, 42 divided by n. And here are a couple of ways it could be read. 42 divided by a number, or the quotient of 42 and a number. And here are three different sets of words, but they're very similar. The first set is a sentence, 42 is less than a number. Now a phrase, 42 less than a number. And finally, another phrase, 42 less a number. The words are similar in all three, but not identical, and in fact, they have very different meanings. In fact, the sentence in the first line has a special name, an inequality. We'll cover inequalities much more in subsequent lessons. And of course, the second two are phrases, also known as expressions. Well, let's translate them into symbols. The first one, shown up at the top in blue, can be written 42 is less than n, where n is the number. 42 less than a number is n minus 42, but 42 less a number is 42 minus n. They have similar words, but they all translate differently. And here's an expression that involves a grouping symbol. It could be read the product of 2 and the sum of a number and 5. Could also be read 2 times the quantity, a number plus 5. We use the word quantity when we're saying in words expressions and or equations that have grouping symbols. Here's an expression without a grouping symbol. It could be read the product of 6 and a number take away 4. Could also be read 4 less than the product of 6 and a number. And how about the difference of the product of 6 and a number and 4? And here's another one, 6 times a number minus 4. Very straightforward, and the words go left to right just as it is up at the top. Here's one, 7 plus n divided by 3. Well, one way to say it would be 7 added to the quotient of a number and 3. Or 7 increased by the quotient of a number and 3. And finally, just say it straightforward from left to right and let order of operations take its course. 7 plus a number divided by 3. Here's a similar expression, but we've grouped the 7 plus n. So now, of course, the 7 is added to the number before the sum is divided by 3. So it's read differently. So here is a way it could be read. The sum of 7 and a number divided by 3. And here's an equation. It could be read 4 added to the product of 2 and a number is equal to 7. Or how about the product of 2 and a number increased by 4 is equal to 7. Here's another equation. We could read that as 3 times the sum of a number and 4 is equal to 14. Or 3 times the quantity, a number plus 4, is equal to 14. Here's another equation. We could read that 4 more than 3 times a number is equal to 14 more than 6 times the number. And here's one more equation, very similar to the previous one, but it has 2 variables, so we have to make one adjustment for the second variable. We read it 4 more than 3 times a number is equal to 14 more than 6 times another number. We add the word another so that we can tell that there's 2 different variables representing perhaps 2 different numbers in this equation. There are quite a few words commonly used when translating algebraic expressions and equations into words. Among those words are added, subtracted, multiplied, divided, sum, difference, product, quotient, increased by, and decreased by. Subtraction can be the most confusing to translate.